Before I talk about the revolution, let me start about what hasn't changed and is unlikely to change for a while, which is human metabolism, yours, mine. Since our ancestors were running after the mammoth, we've always been hardwired for fat, salt, and sugar because they were very rare components and very vital components. We needed to be hormonally driven to go after them. But looking at this room and looking at myself, these parameters have changed quite a bit. And these had dramatic consequences. On one side, we can be proud, I think, that as an industry, we've been able to bring access to food to many, barring hunger from many places around the world. And in the same time, it came with unprecedented, probably unexpected consequences, the explosion of non-communicable diseases and the depletions of the resources of the planet. How did that happen? Well, I think it started with the fact that food is precious and we called it a commodity. It tells everything about who I am, who you are. It tells a point of view in the world. It tells a meaning in our lives. And we called it a consumable. We made it a consumer good. We let the market forces drive demand, drive supply. And we are hardwired for salt, for fat, for sugar. And the result is there because unlike what Wall Street is trying to tell us, there is no invisible hand. In particular, there is no invisible hand when it comes to do the right or the wrong thing. So the system has reached the limit, and we're pushing through these limits. So why don't we stop? We don't because the consumer does not realize. Consumer does not realize because the food system, we have disconnected people from their food. Because we wanted our brands to show at their best, we disconnected people to understand what's happening behind the brand. The unbalances, the risks, the opportunities, the inequalities of the food cycles. It went to the point where today, 1/3 of UK consumers would be able to say that there is a link between bacon and pig. 50% only would be able to say that there is a link between butter and cow. 90% of school children in another country would not be able to tell that a banana is growing on a tree. And let me finish by something you've probably read last week. Very serious study showing that statistically 15 million of Americans would believe that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. Yes. Yes, we can laugh, but this is pathetic. Because the reality is that we continue unabated on the same model as I speak. We've chosen a dozen practical species of plants, and we made them 75% of our human needs when it comes to food, which brought monoculture, which brought heavy, intensive chemical entrants, which brought water overusage in agriculture, leading to soil depletion of their fertility. Talking about water, overuse of irrigation water is a dramatic factor. 70% of that water is actually lost in evaporation and infiltration around the world. A river like Colorado is 20 times more salty when it leaves the US border than at its source because of over-irrigation that changes the mineral content of the soil and depletes its minerals. So much that before it enters into Mexico, it's got to go through desalination at Yuma. And then it's overused in Mexico as well, so that Do you know where it goes into the Gulf of California? No, because it doesn't anymore. Colorado River is not even reaching the sea anymore. So why do we continue? Lack of competency, of money? What are we afraid of? One of our leaders, the CEO fellow, said, we don't have one single more dollar to put in the health of our consumers. Do you think 500 million people with diabetes in the world would take this for an answer? 2.5 billion overweight or obese people in the world would take this for a serious answer, and 700 million family members in agriculture around the world going hungry every night would take this as an answer? And to be honest, as an industry, have we not been fighting for decades against the fact that there could be a link between calorie intake and obesity at some point? And I'm talking decades, but just looking back 1 year ago, haven't we as an industry fought against the labeling of GMO in the US when 90% of consumers were requesting it, arguing that it would confuse the consumer more and this is useless information? Well, another CEO quote is, we never saw the consumer as confused. They're lost. Well, the truth is we lost them. We are losing them, literally. They're just getting out of our shops, getting out of our brands, finding their own alternatives. They are going for food without us, without the food industry. That's what is happening. Not only without, but maybe against us. For those of you who don't know, 160 countries at the UN have voted that food is a human right. That human right is defined as the access in enough quantity and quality to decent and culturally acceptable food. This is what people are after. And no surprise that more and more people believe that as other commons, as air, water should be free. If water should be free, why not food? So yes, a revolution is cooking. And the question is, what do we do about this? Of course, many would be right to say that industry is taking a leadership. This is right. The very existence of this forum in its 60 years, doing so much as what it does, is exactly right. This is what needs to be done. Your presence in this room, me on this stage. We are addressing the topic. But the question is it true enough? Is it big enough? Is it fast enough? I think we're coming to the point where we will have to either fight against consumer going after their own food way, or recognize as an industry that its ultimate goal is to serve the sovereignty for people on their food. And if this is the case, we can support this because they will go after it. And I would like to have a film, please.
Have power. You have the power to change everything for the better. Your health, your society, our planet. You might not know you have it, but you use this power every single day. This power is the food you choose. Because everything we eat and drink affects our lives and the world we live in. Health, life, local communities, forests, farming, water, climate, tomorrow. So you can create the life, the society, the world you want, each time you eat and drink. Just be curious. Ask who made your food. Think about how it got to you. Because if you eat well, it's good for everyone. This is what we believe at Danone. Together we can inspire a revolution for an entire generation. Danone. One planet, one health.
There are people that can vote, and there are people that cannot yet. I grew up in the French Alps, in the mountains, in the nature. Today, some of my close friends are still making a living out of selling milk to companies like Danone. I lived in Africa, and I discovered community-governed water. I lived in China 10 years ago, and I could see how one day China's needs would disrupt the food system. And today, we need to pay security guards in the shops in Germany, here in this country, to avoid the fight of traders importing baby food to China with German mums. That's the reality. I went to the migrant camp of Calais, north of France. Why? Well, we have 2 factories in the vicinity of that camp, 50 kilometers away. Migrants are risking their lives to jump into the wheels of our trucks because they trust on the other side of the sea in the UK there is a better life. I was commissioned by the French government about a study on the future of official development assistance. And our conclusions were pretty clear. The system doesn't work. Agriculture doesn't get what it should in emerging countries. Family agriculture doesn't get anything. And women in agriculture who yet supply, by their work every day, 70% of the needs for humankind, food, don't get anything. When we wanted to do our part, we started a small revolution in Bangladesh with Grameen Bank. We invented a micro factory, rural, delivering a locally made, very powerful yogurt to be sold by ladies in the villages. And I met one woman in one of these villages called Yamina. Yamina said, I understand all the good things about your yogurt, but today I get my milk from my neighbor in exchange of the fact that I'm taking care of her kids while she's working in the fields. So if tomorrow I buy your yogurt, how is she going to do with her kids? So thank you, but no. So Yamina was probably the last person I would think of in terms of voting for the world in which she wants to live with her food, yet she did. So if Yamina can, who cannot? And actually traveling the world, as I'm sure many of us do in this room, we meet more and more people that are asking the question, that want to know what's behind the brand, that want to know how the food was prepared, where was it grown, who are the people behind the brand. I met an increasingly bigger number of people that are finding solutions to save water, to invent new food, to disrupt the food models with technology, to create new recipes, new ways of saving food, of less waste, of sharing food, delivering it fresh, inventing the food of the future in a way that's sustainable. So from the homes of these people, to the markets where they shop, to the factories where we manufacture these products, to the farms, to the fields, back to nature, back to where I'm coming from, I realized that, yes, another world is possible. So why don't we start? Well, we don't start because I'm ashamed at many of the decisions I continue to make. We are so far from being perfect. There's so much yet to do that we don't know how to do better. Some of these decisions keep me awake at night. But is it good enough an excuse not to start? So we started. We asked many people in Danone to write a manifesto that has inspired this film. You have the power. So today, Danone is committing to both nourish and protect one planet, one health. You could say it's a nice intent. Where's the proof? And you would be right. We are a company like any other. We are part of this incredibly complex economy that has turned because of market forces, because there is no invisible hand other than your hands and mine, turn into a world where the wealth concentration is a huge time bomb, where food inequalities is part of the social injustice, and where there is a need to make it very clear. The ultimate goal of market economy cannot be anything other than social justice. This is a matter of business sense. Where is the proof? We decided last year to start a journey with the B Corp movement. Danone has had for many years, decades, a dual economic and social project. And we decided that we should start with that again, to declare an intent that as a company, we would not only pursue value creation, but I would be held accountable, the board of Danone would be held accountable on how we share that value, the social, environmental, societal value that we create, that we share. And this is how we created this public benefit corporation that's now hosting our White Wave acquisition in the US, $6 billion, the largest in the world. This is how, with my board consent, I went to the shareholders' general meeting of Danone last April to say that we commit as a company to become a B Corp. And I want to be very clear with all of us at Danone, all of us that may embark this movement, that this declaration for a B Corp to protect and nourish one planet, one health, is an act of allegiance sworn to the sovereignty of the food of the people and to no one else. So we started. One planet, one health surely means that we will have to disrupt many more things at Danone. We will have to accept the idea that merchant food, the way we process it, we prepare it, is only going to be one part of the solution. When we talk about sustainability, everyone, we talk about our license to operate. But when people think about their food sovereignty, they reclaim this license to operate to us. They're looking at their license to operate and how they will accommodate us as part of this license. This is a huge change, and this will disrupt our business models. This will be our responsibility to adjust the way our companies work. One planet, one health. This is also going to be the relocalization of the food system in many ways. And technology, 3D printing, dematerialization will support this in many ways. It means that probably that could be the end of the big pyramidal multinational models. We will have to invent new organizations, much closer to life, much closer to the reality. Neuronal networks and collaborative inside out. One planet, one health means that the people in the USA that live in the food deserts, the people in New York that are raising, growing community gardens, the people that are shopping natural channel, Amazon now, in California, the people that live in slums near Paris or in Nairobi and that pay so much more for their food, that lives in the favelas, that lives in the scavengers in the landfills in Jakarta, in Asia. the young people that are suffering allergy, but also the ones that are growing healthily and happily, the people that are living longer lives and that need special care. Otherwise, they would go malnourished. The moms and the dads that are shopping and that are turning the bottle because they want to understand what's behind the small print. They want to know who's behind the brand for their family. Me and you, we are all connected by the same food system. We live on the same planet. We are of the same generation. So we can all pretend that we don't know. We can. But the reality is we do know. We are the first generation that knows, really. So the choice is entirely ours. How much risk, how much of the opportunity are we ready to take? What's the prize for it? Of course, we have, I guess, huge blind spots. There's so much, as I said, that we don't know. But there is so much that we do know. And I would insist on one thing, which is that our people know. Our teams, our workers, they know much more than I do. What is the reality of that food revolution coming? They are at the forefront of that revolution. And so, if we listen to them, if we accept to empower them in leading us in this revolution, they will guide us. They can be the founders of this generation. A generation that would have harnessed its incredibly rich accumulated experience, its access now to completely disruptive technology, its collective intelligence to create lasting food sovereignty for all. So all together, that cannot be other than together, with the ones who can vote for the world in which they want to live each time they eat and drink, for the ones who cannot yet, because they are deprived their right to food. All together, we can be remembered as the food generation, and we will. Thank you.